Hi, I'm Jacques, and we're Octonary. Our project this year is called Octoplanner. This project leans into the planner side of Lensfolio and allows you to create and manage a project filled to the brim with sprints and all sorts of fun events, deadlines, and milestones. Now, you might notice that we don't really have a way to add a portfolio of your skills, and you might struggle to organise groups of users with our app, but we'll worry about why that is a little bit later. What we have for you today is a story. This is a story about how we were forced to work together for a year, and our journey, filled with struggle and redemption, where we learn how to actually work as a team. We'll start with a brief overview of what Octoplanner looks like and some of the cool things you can do with it.
As you guys can see, this is our login page. I'm entering my credentials as a student user. If a user is not registered, they can create an account here. And by logging in, it lands to our profile page. It contains all the details of the user, and we can also edit profile. Moving on to project details page, it contains sprints, events, deadlines, and milestones. And all of these are within the project dates. And they are reflected on monthly calendar. So, sprints, event, deadline, and milestone. On users page, it contains all the users that are registered to our Octoplanner. It has page navigation. At the moment, the users are sorted in ascending order by name, and by clicking on name column, it will be sorted in descending order. This also applies to username, alias, and row columns. And now I'll log out.
While all of those features looked great, by the time our team had implemented them, we had some serious issues stalling our progress. The big one is that we just weren't putting in enough hours to get these features completed. Everything you saw took our team about 2/5 of the project's entire duration to get completed. And as you can see from the graph, our hours spent were absolutely nowhere near the ideal line. Next, we just weren't working as a team. Outside of 2 short meetings per week, we never saw each other. And even in those 2 meetings, we didn't address the problems that we all knew we had. The idea behind these meetings, called stand-ups, is that each team member says what they've done since the last meeting and what they'll do before the next meeting, along with any impediments. We, however, treated these meetings as a chore. And if someone brought up their problems, we basically ignored them. Because of this, we were trying to solve all of our problems individually without asking for help. A particularly silly example of this is we had a simple task to check that some dates entered by the user were valid. We poured about 10 hours into this before we realized that the person needed help, and once we did give them help, it took about 1 hour. This caused problems for us close to the submission deadline because we were trying to cram all of our uncoordinated, overlapping work together, which just caused us so many problems. Another issue is that we had pretty bad quality control. Most of the features that we did complete had bugs or issues that meant they failed their acceptance criteria. Of the 9 features we committed to completing in Sprint 3, only 2 were passable. And they weren't always huge issues. As you can see, sometimes it was as simple as just leaving out the project name from the calendar page. This wasn't helped by our poor testing practices either. Our automated tests covered as little as a quarter of our code at some points. And we only had 10 manual acceptance tests, checking that we passed the acceptance criteria. This low coverage let bugs slip through undetected. Now, these issues weren't invisible. Everybody on the team could see them, and nobody was happy with our progress. It would take a bit of a push for us to start addressing them.
So since these issues came to a bit of a head in Sprint 3, shortly afterwards we were called to a discussion with some of the teaching team, the meeting. After an acutely awkward conversation, we came up with a few action items to get our ducks in a row. These included mandatory co-location, where we would book rooms and just be together for 8 hours a week. following up on the unfinished tasks at stand-ups instead of just letting it slide, increasing our individual accountability to the team. We had a pizza day at the end of the semester because before that we hadn't really interacted outside of the project. And we added the status channel to Slack, so that we could have more granular updates on what each person was up to. And we didn't necessarily follow these all perfectly, but they markedly improved our communication, which gave us this much improved burn down chart for Sprint 4.
So moving forward from that meeting, we decided that the next sprint to be a redemption arc. We implemented some means to transfer knowledge within the team more easily. First is our Spiky, which is the wiki pages for our spikes. Spikes help the team dive deeper and further understand a problem. We do this when we do not have any idea how to approach a problem, when we have multiple options, or when we need initial work done to provide a better task estimate for our tasks. As you can see in the slide above, we have, for every topic that we do a spike on, we write what it's about, how it's going to be implemented for our project, and additional links where we can find more information about it. We also had mini workshops for our team. One example is this WebSocket Masterclass, led by one of our teammates. We learned the relevant classes and methods to use for setting up and using WebSockets to live update our application on all signed-in accounts without the needing to refresh.
Code review is a very important part of development to make sure that code is of a high quality. Our early reviews were fairly disorganized and of variable quality and thoroughness because different team members would focus on different aspects or forget about checking certain parts of the code. Also, we didn't have a good way of deciding who would review what code, and some reviews could be left for a long time before they got finished. As you can see in this flow diagram from Sprint 2, which shows the status of tasks over time, you can see some tasks will be left in review for a long time. In order to fix this, we set up an automatic review picker which would choose a random team member for each code review. We had some problems with the picker repeatedly picking the same team members multiple times, but it was still very useful making sure that reviews were assigned quickly and completed. Later flow diagrams show that the reviews moved quicker when people were immediately assigned to them. We also created a merge review template which would ensure that all merge requests would require certain information to be included and that there would be a checklist for reviewers to go through. This checklist allowed us to make sure that we were considering all important aspects of the code during a review. It included making sure that there were unit and acceptance tests, which helped us to hold us accountable for testing our code. Testing is an important aspect of a project, and this is something that we had to continually work on throughout the project. When developing, we would prefer to finish features quickly and then move on to the next thing without testing it properly. And then many bugs would not be caught and cause us to fail reviews later on. With tests being required by the review process, we were encouraged to have more tests, and this improved our code quality. We wanted to have automated UI tests that would allow us to test the code from a user perspective using an automated setup. But it took us a long time to figure out how to set this up, and by that point it was the final sprint, so we weren't able to implement it effectively. Instead, throughout the project we wrote many manual tests, all collated in a spreadsheet that recorded the tests done on different versions of the code. These manual tests were fairly comprehensive, but they're tedious and time-consuming to run, so they didn't get run that often. They were most useful to us in Sprint 6, where we finished all our tasks before the last day of the sprint, and we were able to spend time running through all the manual tests and catching and fixing many bugs. This meant that Sprint 6 was our most successful sprint, passing all acceptance criteria in the sprint review. The outcome from this were the events, deadlines, and milestones, which George will demonstrate for you now.
So to demonstrate that, I've logged a separate user into each window on either side. And so now when someone edits a deadline, event, or milestone, the other user is getting a notification. Additionally, I'm going to edit the description and the date here, and we will see as soon as I hit the Save Changes button, the date on the right-hand side that I'm editing will change, and the description has also changed, so when I hover over that, we can see it. These also update live when you're adding or deleting. However, there is no editing notification because it kind of doesn't make sense to have one. The monthly planner also has the same feature, so we'll see that this icon, when I save my changes and remove the S from that title, will move across, and the tooltip that shows its name will no longer have an S in it without needing to refresh the page. The planner also live updates for sprints, as we can see if I go across to the gamification sprint and move the end date one date forward. However, the sprints are too structural for the project details page, so if I edit it from the planner page, the project details page is prompted to refresh.
One of the major hurdles we faced this year was talking to each other, which we did not do very much at all. So over the course of the year, we put in place action items and team policies that were designed to improve our teamwork. And what they were really doing was encouraging conversations. We started discussing, could we get everything finished every Friday before the deadline? We started having concrete goals for each of our co-location sessions, so that we have a plan for what we're doing and we're making better use of our time. We started doing a weather check twice a week to see how everyone was feeling about our progress so far. We made detailed guides to get up to speed with new technologies that people had done. For example, the WebSocket Masterclass that was mentioned earlier. We discussed what order our tasks needed to be done in, so that we wouldn't run into conflicts or people doing the same task twice because our tasks weren't very well planned out. And slowly over time, our task estimates got better and better until they were only completely wrong maybe half of the time instead of all of the time. We also went bowling, which was fun, and we learned that no one in our team is very good at bowling. The point is that the more we discussed things with each other, the better we did, which is a crazy concept, but it took us a long time to figure that one out. You see, the more we communicated, the more on board everyone was with what they needed to do and with what everyone else was doing. The faster we communicated, the faster we could solve other people's problems, and the faster we could get our tasks finished. Because we're co-locating every single day, we got more and more comfortable working with each other. With this improved our team morale massively and also increased our individual motivation quite a lot. One example of the success we had was our profile photos implementation. Because we were using our words a bit more, some of our team members actually managed a pair program to do this. That's when some team members prove they can work together and actually deliver a new feature.
Student, teacher, and admin all have permission to edit their profile photos. Here I am adding a photo. While adding a photo, the photo can be zoomed in, zoomed out, or adjusted before saving it. And after saving it, it will show it on profile page. To delete the photo, the user need to go back to update profile picture and then click on delete photo. Yep.
Towards the end of the project, we greatly improved our task planning. Our time estimates for tasks were much closer to the actual time it took to implement them, once you average them out. We did also learn to budget in time for bugs, random issues and shenanigans, testing and reviews, which we didn't do beforehand. Our tasks were also much smaller by the end of the project, gone were the 30-hour monstrosities of the past, replaced with small, bite-sized tasks we could knock out in just an afternoon. We also planned our tasks during the sprint to have a clear order of operations to take into account that some tasks had others as prerequisites. However, like all good plans, this was only of use when we actually stuck to it. We planned the last sprint to have two main goals. The first was to polish our application, bring it all up to speed, make it consistent and nice to use. The second was to implement the groups feature. The problem is that we ended up working on these in order instead of in parallel. This caused us to be frantically trying to combine all of our changes at the end of the sprint, and that broke the groups feature. The lesson we took from this is that you should start working on big tasks earlier, because even if you put 6 talented software engineering students in a room for 5 hours, they're just not going to be able to finish a major feature with no bugs. Good things take time, or at least one more day than you think they will. We'll now show you what we did get done with groups.
So we have two default groups, the members without a group and the teaching staff group. And these groups are users are added to based on what features they have. All the teaching staff group are users with the teacher role. You can remove a user from the group, and that will remove their role from them. And if they are not in another group, they will then appear in the users without a group. Since they've been removed from the teaching staff group, they now no longer have the teacher role, which can be viewed on the users page where you can see their role. Here we can see John Doe is a student and not a teacher anymore. If we add the teacher role back to this user, then they will be returned to the teaching staff group. The ability to add groups is not functional, but if we have other groups, they will be displayed on this page as well.
Yeah, so it's been almost a year since this all started, and our team had a lot of ups and downs. Through all that, we learned that it doesn't really matter whether you're good at coding or whether you're knowledgeable with the technology that we're using. But what's important is that we communicate our ideas to the team and to come up with the best solution for our project. Oh, and do collocation. That's our favorite thing to do. We are Octonary, and this is our Octoplanner. Let us succeed at project management today. Thank you.